Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great NITRO Studio workshop planned for you. And today we're going to be focusing entirely on NITRO Studio's unsung UI heroes. We've talked a bit about UI in the past, but we've got some great unsung heroes that we haven't really touched on previously. So I think this is a great topic. I'm glad to see so many of you with us here today. And just before we dive into it, a friendly reminder that we're going to keep it high level. If you want some help, configuring anything or really diving into the nitty gritty for your specific organization, we're of course always here for you, happy to help. Just give us a shout and we're happy to schedule some one-on-one time. Also, don't be shy. Ask those questions. We'd love to hear from you. Really, our customers are our inspiration for these workshops. We love to hear what you want to know more about. What questions you have. If there's anything that's not unclear, we want to know so we can make it clear. So by all means, don't be shy, use that question box. And lastly, this will be recorded. We will be uploading it to our YouTube channel as well as to our website. So if you'd like to reference back to it in the future, it'll be right here for you. Now I'd like to go ahead and hand things off to our resident NITRO guru and VP of Operations, James Restivo. James has a lot of great things to share with us today. So without any further ado, here's James.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. Appreciate the intro, as always. And yeah, we have some content to go over today that I think is kind of behind the scenes content more than we advertise. And I think as looking at the people who are on the call, you guys are pretty familiar with NITRO. And I think this will help you take your NITRO development. When you're building out your NITRO sites, it'll take it a step further, and it'll be a piece that you can take with you as another tool in the toolbox for helping with AI, UI. I've been talking about AI a lot, right, Chris? We've been talking about AI constantly, so I had that on mind. But UI, we will be talking about.
Yeah.
No, AI, UI, AI. No, this is the UI, user interface we're talking about today. AI is definitely top of mind. I know a lot of you probably would talk about it. And certainly if anyone's interested in AI, just a quick plug, we're happy to talk about that. We have some great AI developments in progress, but we're going to talk about UI today, user interface. Just a couple things that I think you'll find useful. These are web parts that are sort of under the covers a little bit, like I said, behind the scenes. We do put them in our applications, but it's not something we put out there as a marketable, as part of the NITRO Studio screen that you see in the NITRO Studio page. But this will be a way for you to get access to it and see it. I do want to point out there are a couple of handouts that we have in addition to the content I'm going to deliver today. So those handouts hopefully will help you. If you're using one of our applications, some of this material will be there for you. You just go behind the scenes a little bit and get access to it. But I've also made it accessible through a handout on the handout section today. So what I'll do now is switch over to sharing my screen. So let me make myself presenter. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see it. It's just going to be very, very basic tickets load. Web pages is in our new NITRO Help Desk version 2. So this is what we're going to work on today and build this out into more of a dashboard page. So what am I talking about with these unsung heroes? What I mean is the HTML text web part and the script file that refers to generate the tabbing look and feel that you may have seen in our administration page. So you have these tabs over here on the left, which are going to work differently from the quick launch because they're not going to put you on a different page. They're going to keep you in the same page. And all they're really doing is hiding and showing web parts on the page based on the configurations and the script file that's behind this. So this is a vertical orientation. We can also do a horizontal orientation for these tabs. The tabs can say whatever you want them to say. They can have icons associated with them, and they can also have this drop-down capability, which is kind of neat as well. So this is what we're talking about today. Are these tab headers over here and how to make them work for you, so you can build out a dashboard page that might have some tabbing on it. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is I think this is something I've actually gotten a lot of use out of internally when building out dashboard pages for our internal staff. And Krista knows we recently put together a marketing reports page that takes some of the information we already have in the system, create some reports around it, and creates a whole dashboard page for her to look at that can be separated out by different metrics. So you have all these different web parts on the page, but they're all separated out by these tabs. So we'll talk about how the setup looks for this and how you can modify the file to make it work for you. So the basic setup of it is pretty simple. And I'll get to it by going to the CCS mode equals 1. So this is our way to get rid of some of the branding around the page that hides some of the more standard SharePoint stuff. Now, normally we don't want our end users to get bogged down in looking at all the SharePoint stuff or getting distracted by it. But as admins, you'll have access to this and you can get into the back end and show it. And what I wanted to do is edit this page and show you what this web part looks like and how it is configured. So this is our HTML text web part. You see it's hovered over there at the top. And the configurations for it, the editing for it is pretty simple, straightforward. There's two sections of it. There's the script files path, which is pointing to a resource we have out on the web. It's a public resource. If you're using a dedicated Azure, it would just be a reference to a file that you have locally in your Azure environment, and our team would have helped you configure that location. And then if you're, there's a JSON file, or sorry, JavaScript file actually that's stored usually in site assets. And this is under a particular folder structure, which we'll look at. It doesn't have to be, but this is under a particular folder structure for that JavaScript web part. And that's what really, this is the heart of it. This is the JavaScript file is what's driving the configuration over here on the left. And so that's what we're going to modify, and what you would want to modify to make the page work the way you want it to work. And then there's some HTML text in here. Again, it's pointing to well, this has got a little more in it than usual, but it's usually just like up through here. That is, again, pointing out to that resource, same resource that we have up here. This, well, it's a CSS file instead of a JS file. But again, that's pointing to a public resource. If you're using our Office 365 commercial Azure, you should be able to use this same exact URL that you're seeing on the screen. Again, if you're a dedicated Azure GCC High customer, it would be slightly different and just pointing to an internal resource on your Azure instead of our Azure. So that's really the main difference between those two setups. Now, how does this get configured? Well, first of all, you want to have reference to this JSON file wherever it is, but then you want to have reference to the JavaScript file, or I guess they're both JavaScript files, but you want to have reference to this JavaScript file internally and then make edits to it accordingly. So what we can do is do copy and paste. So if you have this type of admin setup, you can do a copy and paste over to this file. Again, I've added the script layout in the handouts so that you can easily copy and paste from the PDF file into your own JavaScript file. But here, I'll show you what this looks like. So come over here to this tab settings folder, and you have your extend DB tabs administration JavaScript. Now, one thing I've noticed when I was preparing for this workshop, which I hadn't ever seen before, is that you can click on this and it'll open up an editable screen right there in the context of your browser. This was new to me. I actually hadn't seen this before today. What you would have to do, or what I was doing before, is downloading the file, making edits through an editor such as Notepad++, or even just a Notepad file. It doesn't have to be Notepad++. You can see you can make the edits through here, but it looks like they've actually given you an option to edit the file directly in the browser, which is kind of cool. Well, either way, whether you do it through an external file or do it directly on the file, you can do it either way. One thing I would recommend is if you have a JavaScript file there already and you want to replicate this on a page other than the one you're working on, you would download it and then rename it and then upload it back to that tab settings folder. So that's a piece of it that I'll show you all that as we go through an example of setting this up. But I just want to kind of give you the framework of what we're working from to start, so you can see how this is working. So a lot of this you can kind of quote unquote ignore. You know, if you're familiar with JavaScript, obviously you can come in here and probably understand what's going on, make edits as needed. For me, who's a bit of a JavaScript novice, I can kind of get what's going on here. I have a little bit of coding experience, not a lot, but I kind of understand what's happening. And the main thing that you're looking at here are going to be the web parts, the web part count. And this is how we determine which web parts are shown in that JavaScript file or in that the tabbing interface. So that these are pointing to web parts number 2, number 3, number 4, and that's what's showing on the page when I click the title of categorization. So that's the other piece you'd want to look at here. And then you'll see there's also an auto assignment. So when you click back over here, there's a categorization, there's your auto assignment. It's got a different set of web parts, and this is going to be 5, 6, and 7. And as far as I'm aware, there's no limit to the number of web parts you can put under one tab. It's just a matter of the usability of it and how you want your users to interact with those web parts. So let's take a quick peek at how, well, walkthrough. I mean, it'll be a somewhat detailed walkthrough, actually, not really a quick peek, but a detailed walkthrough of how to set this up for a new page with new settings that you can modify yourself. So I've taken our tickets load page, which is over here in our help desk. And you notice that there's a few other web parts or a few other web part pages over here that you can click over to the different pages. But let's say you wanted to have each of these across the top as a clickable link. And I'm just going to work on a couple of them because there isn't a lot of data here, and I don't want to take up all of your time. But what I'll do is show you how to add that web part to the page, how to configure it, and then how to modify your JavaScript file to give the tabbed experience at the top. So again, I'm going to go to the CSS mode equals 1 piece and get me to the edit screen. So that's going to bring me to the ability to edit this page. I'm going to click edit. And then at the very tippy top of this page, I'm going to want to add, well, let me just add another section, one column section, just so it's, for me, a little consistent. And then we're going to add a web part here, and this is going to be that HTML text web part. And I've been using it a lot, but if you can't see it at the top, you can do HTML in the search bar, and it should come right up. Add that to our page, and now we have our information over here, the script files path and the HTML text. So as far as the script files path, that, like I said, that's going to be pretty consistent if you are in our commercial Azure world. So I actually took what I had in a different environment and added, just copy and paste it into a notepad. So I can just take this information and plop it into here. Now, a couple things you're going to want to change in this, of course. And now you're going to want to change the tenant domain to be your tenant domain, right? So it's not all pointing to Crocanian Systems. It's going to be going to something else. But I'm going to point this to Crocanian Systems. And really, this is pointing to the document library where this JavaScript file lives. All right, so I call this extenddbtabs example.js. We could call it something else. We just have to make sure the name over here corresponds with the name and file location of where that JavaScript file actually lives. So we'll do that in a minute. But the other thing I want to get in here just before I forget is that the HTML text reference, you can see it's a little less than what we saw before. This is more of a horizontal look and feel, which I tend to prefer. The vertical look and feel is fine for our application, but I tend to prefer the horizontal look and feel, and I will show you that there's how to change that in the file itself. But I'm just going to copy and paste this because we're referring to that public reference resource, and just paste it in, and there you go. Okay, now I'm not going to publish the page yet because I want to make edits to this file and maybe even rename this file before we publish this. Another thing you want to do before you publish the page is add what other web parts you want on here, and then we can modify the JavaScript file accordingly based on our needs. So what we're going to do on this one, I'm just going to add a couple of reports that I have pre-canned. I don't have to worry about that web part because it's already saved. This nice part about SharePoint Online, it automatically saves your pages. So I'm going to add a report. I'm going to configure this report to point to, let's see, it was open and close tickets by week. So I want to do that one, open. Unfortunately, it's not in alpha order. So it's giving me a minute to find it. Open and close tickets by week. Okay. I'm actually going to leave the header text blank. We're going to hide that header. Let's keep it simple. And a lot of this stuff you can play around with and make it look the way you want it to look. And it's really easy to modify these things. And we're going to add another web part here, another report, and call this tickets overdue by week, which is from our SLA page. Tickets overdue. See if I can just type it in. Tickets. Nope, doesn't work. Okay. Tickets overdue by week. All right, it's right there. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to add those two web parts to my page. And now I'm going to modify my JavaScript file. So we have the one that's in our, you can see there's the one here that's in our site assets already, site assets, CS tab settings. Again, that doesn't have to be the location, it just happens to be where it is. And I've created I had one over here, which I'm going to save locally and then upload into it. And I'm just going to call it example script, just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to save this as a JS file, but what I want to do is take a look at my page and say, okay, I'm going to have the first tab be tickets load. That's going to be my setup on this one. So I'm going to come back into here and change my title to tickets load. And how do I know the numbers of the web parts? Well, that's where it can get a little tricky if you're modifying things, but it's actually pretty easy if you keep track of where things are. And the way we count the web parts is just going down top to bottom and left to right. And so what I mean by that is that this HTML text web part, that's our first web part on the page. That's number one. That doesn't have to be enumerated in that JavaScript file. So we're going to start with number 2, which is this one right here. And you can see this one's 2, this one's 3, and this one's 4. And then correspondingly, we have 5 and 6 at the bottom. So I'm going to take these 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to modify the web parts section here and call it 2, 3, 4, just like that. Now, of course, we have to modify the next one to be 5, and then I'll modify the next one to be 6. And then we're going to change the names as well. So this one was going to be, let's see, tickets by week, just as simple as that, because that kind of corresponds with the report name I had on there. And then we're going to do tickets overdue by week. Just, there we go. Now, since it's a header web part, you might not want to have a lot of text there. But, less is more in this case. If you ever need to add additional tabs here, which you probably would need to do, you can always just copy this whole section and just paste it there. And now you have another iteration of this where you can add another web part, and we want to add the comma there. So just make sure you keep your syntax consistent. You're going to have a comma in between. You're going to have these curly brackets to open and close, and you're going to have this square close bracket and semicolon at the very end. So that's going to end your whole thing. But in between that, you can take any of these and copy them, delete them, whatever you need to do to make it work the way you want it to work. So we're going ahead and remove this. The part goes back to 0, and we're going to remove that comma as well to make sure we stay consistent. All right, so that's that looks pretty good for the type of file we want to have. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a JavaScript file. I think I can do that. JavaScript file. And call it example script. And just like that. So it's send-db tabs example script. I'm going to save it in my downloads folder. And then I can come back over here to our folder in the document library under site assets and add that in. So I'm going to upload this from my documents, downloads right there, example script. And let's give it a second, and there it is. So now that's in our folder. And then all we need to do is go back to our tickets load screen, make sure we copy this name in, example script.js. All right, come over here, edit our HTML web part. And all I need to do here is add script. And extend DB tabs is just kind of the internal name we have for it. That it's you can keep that consistent. You can change it. It really doesn't matter what the name is as long as it's a JavaScript file and that we know where to reference it in the context of the site. That's really about it. And then let me go ahead and republish. And I've done this a bunch, so it should work. I'm hoping it'll work. Of course, in a live, always in a live webinar, it's always a little dicey whether it actually do the thing you want it to do. I'll get rid of the CCS mode just to double check, see what happens. Of course, yeah. See, the rule of webinars and demos is that it will not work until I play with it 2 or 3 times to make it do what I want it to do. But I
It'll
built
work
these.
for all of you, just not on the demo.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy. So, I just kind of want to double check a few things. And this is part of troubleshooting is you just want to make sure, okay, I'm in the right place, site assets, CCS, tab settings, extend DB tabs _example script.js, CCS tab settings, site assets, extend DB tabs, example script.js. That all works. Cocaine systems. See, look at that. The INC and the domain name was not there. There it is. Okay, easy. So that should be an easy fix. And there you go, just like that. Now you have tabbed web parts. So what this looks like in practice is now I can click over to tickets by week. There's my tickets by week report and tickets overdue by week report. So pretty easy. It's actually pretty easy once you kind of wrap your head around what it takes to modify that JavaScript file and add it in there. So yeah, that's how you do it. Now, one thing I did want to show you is the ability to make this vertical. And I think there is something else going on in the administration to kind of push this over to the left side, because you'll notice this web part is in a column to the left of the content. So if you want to make it vertical, you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to put it in a column to the left of the content. But just to show you how easy it is to change something like this, you see it's horizontal here. I'm going to go ahead and actually I can just publish this. I don't even have to do anything. I just need to change the file. So I go back over to my file, and towards the bottom, there's some other kind of junk in here, just to kind of remind you or remind us or team or whomever on how a tab is set up. Then there's some other settings around here that you can play with as far as how things look, colors, padding, a lot of options there. I won't go through all that, but you can certainly play with that as much as you want. But the tab settings position, that's where you can change it from a horizontal to a vertical tab. So just change this H to a V, and then I'm going to leave the H out here, commented out, just so that I can see it. And then there's a save file here. And I gotta tell you, this is the first time I've done this, kind of configuring it in the browser. This is amazing. I don't know when Microsoft put this out there, but I swear that I could never do this before. It always had download, rename the file, upload again, overwrite the file that I had. It was just not difficult, but it was just a few steps in the process that now seem to have gone away, which is pretty amazing. So I'll come back over here and reload. So now you got it by vertical. So you can see how having it on the left-hand column would make more sense than having it right above, but certainly that's a stylistic choice that you can play around with and choose to do on your own. So just to point out on the handouts piece, so you guys can do this yourselves, on the extend DB tabs example script PDF, that's going to be the example script that we put in here, this one right here. Now, obviously, I modified it as we're going through this webinar, so you're going to see kind of what it was before, which I pulled from a projects tabbing that I had done for tracking our internal projects. And then so you just need to do the changes that I went through today. Change the title, change the web parts that are in that section, and go from there. A couple other things about this. There is a is default option, so that's going to be whatever loads first on the page. You should have only one as default, so that would make the most sense. Because if you have more than one as default, it chooses the last one in the list. Because I made that mistake one time. I basically just copied this whole section and recreated it, and that is default was on there, and it always went to the second one in the list, not the first one, which was kind of weird. I'm not really sure what the choice was there, but certainly in practice, you're going to want to have one default tab. That's just going to be the tab that loads when you first come on here. So in this case, categorization is going to be the default one. So if I come back and look at my administration section, is default true is on the categorization. Yeah, obviously it makes sense. It's going to be the top one or the one furthest to the left. That's going to make the most sense. Now the other thing you can play around with are the MS icons. I'm sure there's a library somewhere where you can figure out what the actual icon terminology is, so you know what to put there. But you can see the icons are what appear over to the left over here. And I didn't do that with mine. I think I just have a very basic, the mail template. So I can obviously come in and change that. I've actually gotten so used to it, I don't even notice that envelope there anymore, to be frank with you. So I didn't even think to change that, but that certainly is an option as well in these tab settings, is to go through and change the icon references to something more appropriate for what the tab is actually showing. So this is a page list. This one's like an assign button, things like that. So you can go through and modify those things as needed. Yeah, and then as far as the other handout, is got the script file reference, or the HTML text reference that I was talking about earlier with this over here. So the HTML text inputs is going to show you this at the top, and it's going to show you this at the bottom. Again, that's just for your ease of reference. If you don't have an one of our applications with administration in it, then this is how you could get it. So if you're just using NITRO Studio, as some of our customers are, you can just go ahead and you can take this from the HTML text inputs a PDF that I put on the handouts. But if you do have an application like a IT help desk or onboarding, one of our other applications, you can go into the administration page and get to the same files as the same way I showed on this workshop today. So hopefully that'll help you guys in configuring your pages and dashboard pages. Really, it's really about that. Again, so I just want to kind of show you what it looks like. I think it's a great way to separate out your web parts so you don't have multiple pages to deal with. You can manage everything from one page and make it easy to see and break things out. And so like I said, I've been using this a lot internally, which is why I wanted to share this insight with you. Again, it's available to everyone who's using NITRO Studio, so I didn't want to keep it behind the scenes necessarily. I thought it'd be good to share this with you guys, and hopefully you get some use out of it. Yeah, that was kind of the long and short of it today for this workshop. And you see, let's go back to the horizontal. And yeah, Krista, any questions or anything need
Thanks,
to dig
James.
into in more detail?
Oh, I think you were very thorough. I really appreciated the walkthrough there. I personally learned a lot. I hope all of you did as well. One thing I would like to say is, for all of our attendees, we would love to hear from you if there's anything that you would like to see covered for future webinars or future workshops, excuse me. Our goal here is to delve into the nitty gritty and the details of anything that you'd like to know. So if you're looking for some pointers on how to leverage a certain aspect, or you're trying to figure out how to do something, or you want to learn more about a certain element, let us know. We want to hear from you, and we would love to feature that in an upcoming workshop. So
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to second that and say, I've been doing these for what, 2 years, 3 years now. I think I feel like
wow.
I feel like for me, I've covered every topic that there is to cover. So that's why we're leaning on you. What do you need? What do you need from us to learn? And hopefully, you're getting everything you need from our manuals, or from our these workshops, previous workshops. But yeah, if there's anything you want to dig into in more detail, we'd love to take that problem, or maybe it's a how-to, or maybe it's I want to set this kind of thing up. How would I do that? We can do some of those types of workshops as well. I think that'd be really helpful. But yeah, certainly happy to take feedback and input from our customers on what do you want to see, what's helpful for you. But yeah, so that's where that's coming from. But I'll give you back a half hour of your day. Appreciate everyone jumping on. There should be a short poll that comes up asking similar questions. What do you want to see? What do you find helpful? and be honest and provide your feedback. We really appreciate it. And with that, I hope everyone has an excellent rest of your day and a good rest of your week if we don't talk. All right, thanks, Krista.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.